Welcome to Senioropedia, the everything how-to guide for seniors and caregivers. I'm Virath Balawala, your host for today's episode. And today we have with us Kim Copetti, who is actually my accountant. She's been my accountant for a number of years, and she's going to share with us her personal experiences with having to downsize her parents. Welcome, Kim. How are you?
Great. How are you, Vera?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. I know it's kind of painful to have to relive that whole experience, but I really appreciate you sharing that so that others can also benefit from your experiences.
Thank you very much for having me.
Why don't we start off just kind of going over the whole ordeal that you went through, and then we can kind of maybe delve into a few of the different areas.
My experience basically started, I would say, the day my father passed away. My mom and dad had been married for 60 years and they were fine, but his death was really quite sudden. And my father, he took care of basically all the finances, typical with that age group. And my mom, she was kind of lost. She was lost for a while. And then that was sort of in 2019. And she was kind of okay originally. The first year, she had a lot of support within her building. Like she lived in a triplex. There were six other seniors, so they were kind of a force during COVID altogether. So she was really well taken care of during that time, and she was doing okay. She was fine, but it was after COVID that I really noticed the biggest difference with my mom. And then the realization sort of set in and, it always takes just something to trigger them to make you realize that they're just not faring as well as they could be faring on their own. So there's a 4 hour difference between me and my mom at that time.
She was living quite remote from you.
Yeah, she lived up north and I was in the GTA. So when I would go back up and forth, she seemed to be fine. But then you start looking at some of the things that she's doing, like the money that she's spending, and you're looking at those kinds of things. And it's a little bit of a trigger in my brain that something's not right. She would never shop like that before. So it was one of the first things that sort of came up. And then she'd been caring for her neighbor, which had lived right across the hall from her. And she was older than my mom. But she fell sick and she had to go into a home and she never came back. And that for my mother was the trigger of the downfall. She had no longer nobody to care for. And people were going to see her, but they weren't really seeing her. And when I say that, they're not like looking at her bank statements, looking at what she's doing, asking her questions, and that sort of stuff. And so what happened was she was scared to actually cook. So she would only do anything in the oven. She was scared to be alone in her apartment, which was new for her because she lived in a very safe building. And then she stopped eating. She fell into sort of a depression. So she lost about 25 pounds. And so in between that, I had been seeing her. But like I said, when you go see somebody, you don't actually really see them. So she landed in the hospital a couple months later because also her dementia had just started and she couldn't remember to take her pills. So a simple thing like 2 times a day, or she double take them because she forgot that she took them. So she was in the hospital for about 5 weeks, but during that 5 weeks that she was in the hospital, that's when I started to sit down and say, okay, let's have a really good look at what's going on here. And what I found is her closets were full of stuff, like, I mean, multiple stuff that she would buy because of her dementia. So literally, I think this was like an 8 foot closet, and 4 feet of it was just solid stuff that I had to go through. And nobody would check. You wouldn't even think to check the closets. Like just a simple thing like that would have been like, okay, something's really wrong. Like I knew something was wrong because of the amount of money that was coming out of her account, but I didn't really know the extent of it until she was in the hospital. And then when she went into the hospital, based on the assessments, they said that she couldn't go back home alone. So we had to find her a place rather quick. And so I found a place for her. It was a retirement home, but the home would just assume that she could do everything that she could do. She could shower, that kind of stuff. But what I found when she moved there, she still had the same hoarding problem. So within a 2 week period, I had to move her there, arrange a mover, and then start the painful process of actually cleaning out her apartment. I have a brother who works 1 week out of the city. He lived around her, but only would see her every second week. But they don't, nothing against brothers, but they don't look really deep into what's really happening or why it's happening, So he would just assume that she was safe even in that environment. And really what I found was she was hoarding masks and stuff like that. And I said to the home, like, do you know that she's taking all this stuff because you can't use it? And it was shoved in all of the corners. And they said, yeah, we know, but we try to go in and get it, but she was scared to leave her room. So she was dealing with a lot of her dementia stuff, and I was trying to deal with just actually cleaning out her place and letting go of her an apartment. And it was hard because my brother didn't want to let go of stuff. So we ended up moving a lot of stuff to a storage unit with the idea that he would go through it, because she moved into basically a bachelor apartment, small, a room, bathroom, a closet. That's really all that she had. So in that process, it was very difficult for me because I was here and trying to arrange for it up there and moving stuff over and trying to make sure my mother was okay. I was kind of running all over the place. But even when you get them into these homes, there's still more work. So it's been an ongoing process. Like, I didn't realize how much she was hoarding. And I would say to my brother, he says, yeah, but he says, I didn't, I said, well, she's doing it, which means when you go, you need to check, clean, and she couldn't buy anything, but she was still just ordering stuff around the home. And they said, well, that's pretty typical with dementia patients. But I think what really frustrated was because you're now on a waiting list and you're now trying to deal with caregivers. So I had her on a waiting list to come and move down south closer to me. But in the interim, we had these caregivers that were supposed to go in and check on her, but they'd never show up. She was wearing the same clothes. They really weren't taking really good care of her. And then if she had some issues, they wouldn't tell anybody. I tried to get them to even sign a book to say that they were there. They couldn't do that. And the biggest problem with my mom is they said, well, she's not a priority because she can walk and she can dress herself. So she wasn't in that critical space, although mentally she was, but physically she wasn't. So it was really tough. And then just going during this period of time, probably in that first year, I put probably, and I'm not lying, about 7,000 kilometers on my car going back and forth. And it sort of all came to head, not this year, but last year. So she had been in that place for about a year and a half, but she ended up in the hospital. And she ended up in the cardiac ward, and basically it was tax season. There's no way I could go at that time. My brother was supposed to keep up with the doctors, but he really didn't see the doctor. And then they gave her more pills. But what I found when I went up to see her then, really just she had a UTI, she was seeing things, she had all kinds of problems, and the home wasn't really looking after her. Like, she would go into her room and she would not come out and that kind of stuff. At the end of the day, what ended up happening was I had brought her down here in early May because she had to have a heart monitor to make sure she wore it and that kind of stuff. And my client is a doctor, and I said, what do you do? Because I can't get her down here because she's on a list, but it'll be a while. And he said, take her to the hospital. And I took her to the hospital. And I have to say that the doctors that I saw in the merge with my mom were quite good. I explained the situation to them because basically they can place somebody within 150 kilometers of your home, that sort of thing. So with my mom, they said, well, I'll get you in touch with somebody locally. And probably from that discussion, which was 2 days at emergency for 8 hours each day, we had a place to go see. We had a place to move her. They moved her to priority, and now she is close to me. So then there's another moving from that period to that period to get her up to here. And she's fine. She's in a home here. It's a long-term care facility, which is amazing. And they have really taken care of her. But she has issues, like she's fallen a lot, and a lot has to do with her dementia because she forgets stuff and reaching. But she'll be 86 in January. She has a good care team around her. She's a doctor that she can see every day, any day If something's wrong, they have a nurse practitioner. They have a nurse on call, so I'm not worried about that. She's taking her meds properly. And her dementia is progressing, but for the first time in probably, well, since 2019, she's what I would call settled right here. The process to get here was long, and it's still an ongoing battle with her falling and that kind of stuff, but we are kind of all working as a team to keep her safe.
Was your brother local to her?
He was, but I think the issue when your parents are that old, you tend to think that they're your strong parent, that they took care of you their whole life. And you tend to overlook the things that'll tell you, like, sure, she was forgetting stuff. Sure, she was repeating stuff. But I mean, that was kind of her thing. She was doing that before my father. So you only see what you want to see. That's what I'm going to say. So you don't want to see the bad side of it. You want to just see the good side. So you still think that this is your strong parent, you know what I mean? And that they're going to be fine and they're going to bounce back. But when you start looking at the reality is they're not going to be fine.
We're going to age.
Yeah. And it's funny because now the thing that she remembers most is she remembers me, my brother, and my dad. But outside of that, she doesn't remember much of her time in Sudbury, and she enjoys being down here and being able to see a lot more of me. But, it's still an ongoing battle. And that's the issue when you have parents that are seniors. We become the caregivers. We're the ones that have to take care of them. And we have to step up to the plate and do it.
And it's now our turn to give back.
Yeah, and you can't really rely on the systems. Our medical, like the doctors are all overloaded. So, you take her to a dementia doctor, but then her actual doctor doesn't know what to do with that. So they give her medication to slow it down. But then she's got all this other medication. So there's a real fragment around that. So that's why at the long-term care facility that she's in, it's great because it's a team. So you got a nurse practitioner, you got a doctor, you got a nurse that's on duty all the time on her floor. You've got PSWs. She's had the same PSW. She's been there for a year and a half, which is amazing, that know her and know the way that she is. But your regular doctor can't do that.
They've got so many other patients to see.
Well, they do, and it's nothing to fault with the system. The system is what it is. The hard part is the actual move out time. I found that very hard. Like I found it actually very disheartening. I don't know how many boxes, to be honest with you. I would say I had a whole garbage bag of freezer bags that she bought. So that's the part that really makes you feel bad as a child because you wish you could have foreseen that that was what was happening. But you're not going to run into your mom's room and say, okay, I'm going to go through your closet. Let's go through your closets today and figure out what's there.
Not seeing whether it was you or whether it was your brother, not seeing that this is actually happening other than, at the bank account level. But unless you're
Yeah,
there every day,
right.
watching and seeing what's coming and going,
Yeah.
how could you possibly know?
Yeah. No, it's true. But, it does make you feel guilty because you figure you should be able to do it. We should check those things out. But they also have their own privacies and their own ways too, and they don't want you to know certain things either. So when she was first moved from her apartment into his first place, she hated it. She'd call me and like, I'm gonna break out, kid. And I was worried because in that facility she could. She could just walk out of the street and gone. So hopefully now where she is, she can't because they have a certain way that you have to press to get on the elevator to get down, and they've got some real security. They keep a really good eye on her. But those are the things that you worry about. I worried about her every day. She lives on a very busy highway, walking out and getting hit by somebody. So it's just those things that kind of just sit in your mind. But the point is, we become caregivers, and I don't think that people are prepared for that, but we have to become the caregivers.
Do you think some of that might have been because it was a smaller community and so they didn't have as many resources, or did that play any factor into this?
I believe so. I mean, you're talking up north in Sudbury, and they're very strained for doctors. One good thing was when she landed in the hospital, when she lost all that weight, she was in for 5 weeks. And during that time, they really worked with her and worked with me to find a place to put her, but to get her healthy. By the time she came out, because the whole point when they go into these sort of areas, It's to rehabilitation and put them back in their homes. But it was clear in her case, she couldn't go back when she was there. And I started to have a look around. Okay, now we think that she needs to go into a facility. They do the search, they find the place. The problem with most of the homes here now is you can get on the list, but it could take forever for you to get in. I'm still waiting for her. There was supposed to be a facility open that we had put her on like 6 years ago, close to my house, it's still not open. And so you've got all these people that are waiting to kind of get into these homes
It has to pass away,
for another person to come in.
right?
When I was at the hospital with her, that time that they have these, they call them idle beds, which they have to keep in all these homes in case there's an emergency. Somebody has to go in there for a temporary from a surgery or whatever. And so what they said is there's these two beds that are available close to your house. Go check them out, let us know. And at that point in time, I kind of had no choice because she had to come here. But certainly, I'm very content with the home that she's in. It's not the newest homes, it's not the ones that they build and all that kind of stuff, but they have multiple things for her to do. They have great staff, not a lot of turnover. The place is clean. Every time I go see her, she's had a shower. She looks great, apart from all the falls, but she's clean and she's not wearing the same clothes. And so I know that she's being taken very well care of. And they watch how much they eat, like every meal and for all the people that are on there. And that's a bit of a difference in a long-term care facility than if you were just going into sort of a retirement home.
So would this be now considered a nursing home that she's in, or is it still independent, or sorry, assisted living?
No, it's a long-term care.
It's long-term care.
So she will stay there now until she passes, which is great because of her dementia too. So it depends on where you're at and it depends on what they do a lot of. Like my mother never drove ever in her life. So when my dad passed away, she really had no way to get around. So before that, everywhere she went with my dad. She didn't go anywhere else. So it was very difficult. She didn't have another life outside of that. So this is kind of nice where she is because she doesn't drive and all the activities are there and she gets the care that she needs, which is good. She's a senior on a fixed pension and her pension just covers her thing, her rent there. And she doesn't pay for anything extra. So it's fine. It's good for her.
Do you see her a lot now?
I see her a lot more, yeah. See her every week. And there's a lot of discussion with the people in the home with respect to her care. What I like about it is they do an annual physical for her and they have a whole team and then they do a medical report on her. Also, any tests that she really needs are all done there. They come in like labs and everything. So there really is no need. I've realized now that she can't come home and stay at my place because she needs that help there. But on Sundays, I go and get her just shortly after her lunch, and I take her out and we have dinner at the house and hang out. And she likes to color, that's her thing. And we watch movies together. And that's better than what I had before when we were 4 hours away. So I'm thankful for those times with her, and I'm thankful for the people in the home, how well they take care of her. And I'm thankful that she's happy where she is when they get to that age, is just to really to find a place where they're happy. And I can leave her there and I can walk away and I know she's going to have all of her meds and they'll take very, very good care of her and she'll have all of her meals and she'll interact with people every day. Because that's the hardest part with seniors, right? Especially once one passes away. It's like if you're in your apartment by yourself, you don't really have anybody to interact with. There's a lot of lonely seniors out there. I see them too with my clients. They're lonely.
It's really disturbing when, because we deal with a lot of seniors and stuff, the
Hmm.
business that we're in. And I find
Yeah,
it very disturbing when, they go into these places and then they have no visit. The families don't come and visit them.
yeah,
And
yeah,
there's an element of loneliness that happens there too, especially if they're not intermingling with other people. And depending on the programs that are at that home that they're in, you
yeah.
get more or less interaction. So that loneliness factor really kicks in.
Yeah, and that's why I say like maybe some of the best facilities are not some of these places, you know what I mean? Maybe the best facilities are like the one that my mom's in, that's the long-term care facility that's been around for a very long time. Not the nicest looking place inside, but you know what? It all has to do with the people inside. So, where my mom was before, they said, oh, there was lots of stuff that was going on and that kind of stuff, but there really wasn't. Whereas every month they set a calendar up. I get the calendar. Every week we get an update about COVID or RSV or what's going on in the home or Christmas parties and stuff like that so that we can go to. And that's what makes the difference for them. And I think that's what makes the difference for my mom. She gets up every day and she's happy. She's content where she is because she recognizes all the people in that. And she's interacting more than she did when she was living on her own. And that's all you really want them to do. You want them to be happy and you want them to be safe. When I bring her back, she'll say to me, "Oh yeah, I really like that place, Kim. I really like it there. I'm glad I moved from Sudbury." And that's all you can hope for. But the look could be long, and you're predicated on whether somebody passes away, whether your individual could get in there, and then you only have a certain amount of time to say yes, and then they're in there, and try and make the best of the situation, and hopefully it works for the person that you love.
What were you actually feeling throughout all of this process? Of course, there's hardships in terms of having to move her, but how were you feeling? You talked a little bit about guilt and things like that. Maybe you could share some of that with us.
I think for me, because I've been away since I was like 30 years, I've lived here.
Mhm.
I think there is a sort of guilt. There's a sort of guilt because you feel like you should have known, but you couldn't have known because they'll hide everything. I think there's also a profound sadness because we're all so busy with our lives. We're bringing up kids, and yes, they're spending time, but if you're not in the same city, it's not the same. So, sometimes I feel like I've missed the best years of her life. And so now I'm trying to make the remaining time that she has be the best time of her life while she's there and to make every moment count because you can't. And I think that's one thing I went through the whole process, especially when my father passed away, because that was kind of a shock to all of us. He just passed away very suddenly. You really have to make time for them now because you just don't know. And you also don't know how they're going to be. For my mom, there was no history of dementia in her family. Her parents didn't have it. Her older sister had it, but she came from a kids of 13. I missed that in between time until she got to there. And now I can just enjoy the simple things with her. Like watching the Women's Channel. She likes all those movies. I've watched all of them. Christmas in July, coloring with her, or making cookies with her. You've got to make it as simple as possible and just spend the time with them as much as you can. So there is a lot of guilt, and I don't think you can ever get over that. But you have to embrace the fact that you can't change what happened before.
Right.
And you have to embrace the fact that it's a role reversal. Now I'm taking care of her. And the way I look at it is, you know what, you took care of me in the most crucial part. I am who I am because of you. So I can give up my time. I can go spend time. And I can now make her life the best it can possibly be for the rest of her days. And that's really all you can do.
It's
So,
wonderful that you have that sort of mentality or thought process because I can tell you, I have seen so many situations where people are totally opposite. I'm too busy now because I've got work and all my other life things that I can't make time for the parents. And I think that that's a darn shame.
well, I think for me, it's just giving back.
Yeah.
She got me to where I was in all my upbringings, and she was always there for me when I was there. So I can give that. You can do that now. That's something I can do for her. You can't physically give them anything. You can give them gifts. Those things don't mean anything to them, but you can't give them your time. And your time is more valuable to them than ever. So those times when I see her every week, that's 6 or 7 hours. That's my time with her. And we laugh, and she says some funny stuff, and she sees her grandson, and she sees my dog, which brings a lot of joy to her. So that's what we got. And I'm just going to make the best of that every single Sunday because the rest of the week I don't have to worry about her. She's good. They'll call me up if there's a problem.
So looking back on all of this time, if you were able to make suggestions to the system or for yourself, even as an individual, what would you do differently?
I think if I was looking back, I mean, I know in most families it's usually a collective effort, like me and my brother. So I would have been a little bit more decisive. And I think I would have tried to be a little bit more in tune with them. Even the little bit of time that I spent with them, with my mom and my dad at that point in time, I would have been a little bit more in tune with what they were doing. I took care of all their financial stuff and all that kind of stuff, but really more on a mental level. And I think we really don't do that. Like we do our quick little visit and everything's fine. But, I would recommend that people look beyond that and really look around their house. Honestly, like stuff you could find when you just open a cupboard. Because when they get older, they forget stuff and then they buy extra stuff. And just be in tune to that and listen to them. Just really take the time to listen to them. Because when you listen to them, then you can start to see, like, oh, cognitively, there's maybe a problem here. And some of them will never go to a doctor. My dad hardly ever went to a doctor, which was a bad thing. But we have to make sure that they go and they get checked out and making sure that they have that resource pool around her. Unfortunately, my brother was only there 1 week of every second week. So it's hard. And it's like, oh, she seems fine when she's there. But really, if we had really looked a little bit deeper, we could have maybe saw the triggers with respect to her dementia and where she was going and planned a little bit better because you're not calling up a moving company in the last minute saying, okay, what am I going to do with all this stuff? She can only take this to here. And then we're going to put it into a storage unit. And you pay storage for umpteenth months because you really don't deal with it, which you should at the time. Because if you're doing a little bit of pre-planning and you see it, then you can make the right decisions. So in my case, the decision worked out. The place that she's in now is her, I tell her forever home, but I know she's being well taken care of. And I know a lot of people don't have that.
I don't know if I ever told you this, but you were actually the inspiration for this podcast
Oh, thank you.
because you were expressing to me how difficult it was for you to get the right information.
Yeah.
And I'd been thinking about doing something to pull together data for seniors and caregivers, because of course, you know that
Mhm.
we're all about seniors and caregivers,
Yeah.
but didn't really know how to connect those dots. And it wasn't until you said that all of a sudden it just clicked. What if we created a podcast that had interviews with
Yeah.
experts and people like yourself, even to just go
Yeah.
through their experiences so others know? And
Yeah.
so that was the beginning of this. So thank you very much. You were the
Yeah.
inspiration for it.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my thing is, I think that people just need to accept their parents the way they are and not to be embarrassed by it. Just as soon as you see the triggers or the signs, that's the time to act because then you can make decisions with them as they go along. And I mean, some people are very stubborn. They don't want to leave their apartments. My mother's point is she got to the point where she couldn't go back. So that kind of made the decision, although it was harder because we had her on a list, but you got to have patience that maybe the first place you put her in is not going to be her forever home either. It's going to be a stopgap to get her to where she needs to go. So that's sort of what I look at that other place like was a stopgap to get her here closer to you.
You said it was a 6 year waiting period, a waiting list.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
The waiting list is very long, and that's the problem. But you have to work with a team. Like you really have to work with your doctors, and the hospitals have geriatric care divisions. And when I brought her to emergency, we were able to talk to them, and they were able to work with the person that she was registered in Sudbury to get her that. But the main thing is for them to move up, they have to be designated as critical. Otherwise, you're just in line. So you're in line until somebody moves out or somebody moves in and that kind of stuff. I have to say, though, with the changes since COVID, the long term care facilities that I've seen, they're much better. And you need to know the difference between a retirement home and a long term care facility because they're two different things.
Right. Now,
So,
would you recommend that as soon as you start to see some signs or even advance of that, knowing that we're aging and knowing that we're going to have some sort of issues come up or another, start to book your space, if you will, early enough, whether it's in independent living or assisted living? And I find that there is a lot of socializing that comes within that. So you don't necessarily need to stay on your own. You can get in sort of earlier. Would that have helped?
Oh, for sure, because she would have been more acceptant of it. Because the initial one wasn't the greatest. Like that transition from her apartment to the first one didn't go well. She wasn't prepared for it. And I think part of the thing is taking them out to the home so they can see how they operate, do tours, and also look at the size of the facility too. Some of these are pretty big and know how your parent is. Like maybe they don't thrive and like they've never really been around a lot of people because in some of the retirement homes, there's a lot of people. One that my aunt lives in, you go into their lobby and there's people everywhere. And that might not be good for them. And if that's not good for your parent, they're not going to enjoy it there because they're never going to come out of their room. And that's not what you want. So they might be a little bit better in a smaller facility, maybe 30, 40 units or something like that. So you really have to know your parent as to what they would feel comfortable. So that's my recommendation. You got to really know your parent and start the process with them as early as possible. Ask them what they want so that you can look into all those options and whatnot that are available.
So, in closing, are there any other tips that you would share for those that are going to start that journey?
Tips would be that start it early and just listen. Listen to your parent, listen and look around at their surroundings and what they need. So that would be my tip. Start there. And then if you're always listening to your parent and you see the environment that they live in, you'll be able to find them the quality of life in their next place. Maybe it's their forever home after that. And try to include everybody as much as possible. It's very difficult because it's me and my brother. So now it's the opposite, right? I see her all the time. My brother hardly sees her because he's up in Sudbury. But if you've got a couple of siblings, you get together and sort of come to some sort of agreement and move together as a family because then your parent will be happy about that.
Well, Kim, thank you so very much for participating in this and being so open and sharing all these sort of
Mhm.
emotional and intimate thoughts and experiences with our
Mhm.
audience. I'm sure everyone will get a lot of benefit out of just listening to your experience.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been a long journey, but we were there now, so it's all good.
If you like this episode, then subscribe, like, share, and most importantly, register for upcoming notifications at senioropediia.com.